it actually heals us in some way to let ourselves be seen and to watch that it doesn't kill us, you know, to let even our failings and our weaknesses be seen, and even our sin, you know, and actually watch how God can use that.
So hi everyone, I'm Tunya Griffin. I am a Doctor of Ministry student here at Northeastern Seminary, and I have the wonderful opportunity to be able to speak with Mandy. And Mandy is an acclaimed author of the book, The Vulnerable Pastor, How Human Limitations Empower Our Ministry. Welcome, Mandy.
Well, thank you for having me. It's fun to do this.
I am so glad I can share a cup of theology with you on today. I'm excited.
Me too.
And you also are a pastor at the University Christian Church in Cincinnati, Ohio.
That's right.
Wow. Well, welcome to Rochester.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. It's
Good.
great to have a chance to get a cup of theology.
Great. Okay, so first order of business, Mandy, we have to get coffee.
Yes.
And so around this area, we have Dunkin' Donuts and we have Tim Hortons. Which one would you prefer?
I would have to say Tim Hortons.
Oh, Tim
Yes.
Hortons, girl. So tell me a little bit about that.
That is because we go to Canada every chance we get, and Tim Hortons is everywhere in Canada. Wherever you would find a McDonald's here, you would find a Tim Hortons there on every corner, basically. And so it just feels like what we do when we go on vacation. Plus, they make pretty good tea, actually. So am I allowed to get tea instead of coffee? Is that okay?
Yes, you can get tea instead of coffee. I'm a coffee girl, so if you don't
Okay.
mind, I'm going to get
You're
coffee.
welcome. Yeah. They actually make pretty good tea, and they serve things when you don't go through the drive-through. When you actually stay in the store, they serve things in a proper little cup and like a china plate and everything. So maybe
Wow.
that's the other reason why I like it.
Well, that's wonderful.
It
Well,
feels
let
a
us.
little fancy.
It feels a little fancy. I like fancy. So let's get our order.
Can I get a chai?
Sure. We have a medium chai tea. Please, I would like to have a small French vanilla coffee. Great, thank you. So you're from Cincinnati, Ohio, Mandy, and you're visiting upstate New York. So how has it been for you thus far?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful day today, so that helps. It's been raining nonstop in Cincinnati, so I'm just enjoying being outdoors. And your campus is gorgeous. I haven't seen much else of Rochester, apart from the airport and the hotel, but your campus is beautiful.
Oh,
Just
great.
went for a walk around it this afternoon, so
Yeah.
so far Rochester is lovely.
I'm glad that you like it. Yeah, because Northeastern is one of the reasons why I chose that campus is because, as you said, it's a beautiful
Yeah, it's
campus. I
lovely.
mean, it just draws you in. So it's
And
just
old trees and lots of grass. It's beautiful. I guess it's been there for a while, hasn't it?
It has.
For 26.
Hi.
Thank you. Here is the coffee.
Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
And then here is your chai tea when you're ready.
Awesome.
Thank you. Oh look, see there's the Canada's favorite coffee.
There you are. So I'm glad that you came to Rochester and you
Yeah,
were
no, I
here
complain.
and you did a conference.
Yes, we just had a one-day conference today. It was great. We had a really great conversation.
Good. So tell me a little bit about some of the conversations that came out of the conference. I'd be interested in hearing that.
So we were talking about what it looks like to lead as human beings in an age of celebrity.
Ah.
And it was based on the book, The Volta Pasta. And so we talked first about just confronting our own ordinariness and limitation as human beings, how we stop shying away from that reality in order to let God show his strength in our weakness, as we see in 2 Corinthians. And then we also talked about what does it look like to actually shape a culture of that for our congregations, and then even to let folks outside of the church see how much we need God. Is there even an evangelistic opportunity in how we let our need for God be seen? So yeah, we had 3 different sessions today, lots of prayer and lots of great conversation, and I think we all really need permission to know that we're not alone in just confronting our weakness and not being ashamed of how we're human beings that God wants to use.
So my question for you, Mandy, is why do you think that leaders today really struggle with the ideal of putting their vulnerabilities, as we would say, on display. Why does leaders struggle with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that really the world that we're in is a world of being very polished and having a strong front put forward, and so when we see that in other leaders, whether it's politicians or actors or other people, just seem so squeaky clean and so polished and put together that when we see that, we think, oh, maybe I can't lead if that's what it looks like, that I have to be a perfect person. But that's not really a Christian model of leadership. And so it really brings up all of our own sense of inadequacy, all of our own fears of exposure and our own shame that we aren't put together like all those people seem to be. And so, yeah, I think honestly the enemy comes into play there too and says, yeah, you're too this, you're too that, God can't use you, or you're not this enough, and we actually confessed some of that today. It was beautiful to hear in the room. Some people were saying, I feel too old to be used, or I feel too quiet to be used, or I feel like I'm not educated enough. And just to confess that is really freeing. And I think the enemy would love us to not step out and to actually trust that God can use us. And so it's good to have a chance to get over that together.
Wow, that's amazing. So how does that process feel for leaders when they go through what I would consider kind of stripping off this whole image or this whole ideal that we brought into as it relates to celebrity? How does that feel to leaders when they have to do that?
Yeah, it's hard work, and I think we are tempted to flee from it when we have an experience that reveals to us or reminds us of our limitation, which I think happens every day in ministry. We're reminded of how we can't fix problems, we can't solve all the questions, we can't care enough or work enough, and our bodies get tired. And I think that when we are confronted with that situation every single day, we are tempted to just avoid it, just to work harder so we don't, we hope that we can maybe fix the problem, or just run away from the issue. But yeah, you're right. I think it's kind of it's a moment to even get in the habit of facing it, and I think it's a kind of a confession moment. It's a moment of truth. It's a come to Jesus kind of moment, And I think Jesus actually gives us a really good model. His emptying is a way to step into this, to trust that if we step into the truth that we are human beings, then we can actually get into a different habit of telling the Lord we need Him in that moment, as opposed to hiding in shame from our limitation. And you're right. It's a tricky habit, though, to get out of the old habit and to trust that something new breaks through when we are honest with the Lord and with one another.
It sounds like this authenticity of really who you are, and being able to kind of own that. That's what I heard you say earlier. And that is sometimes the challenge of stepping into who we really are, to become who God has called us to be.
Yeah, and it's not making it about ourselves to do that. It's trusting that God can use us as we are without making the attention be focused on us.
Wow.
And I think that it actually heals us in some way to let ourselves be seen, and to watch that it doesn't kill us, to let even our failings and our weaknesses be seen, and even our sin, and actually watch how God can use that.
Wow.
It's good work. It's hard sometimes, but it's good. And this is what Paul's talking about, that in our weakness God promises to be strong, but we have to be willing to let the weakness be seen in the healthy way. There are unhealthy ways to do it. But.
So how do you feel that vulnerability can benefit our ministry teams and our Christian communities?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because it's not just about between me and God, but also giving one another permission to be real with one another. And I think that's when it really started to seem powerful for me, was when I had a moment of having to share something with a person who's on staff with me, and share that something was going on at home that day. I didn't feel ready for a meeting that we had planned for that day, and I didn't really think any further than that, except that I just had to be honest that I didn't feel ready. And it just really became a beautiful moment for him to pray for me, for him to see that leaders don't always have to have perfect families, and for him to say, well, I feel ready for today. I have a few ideas. Can I share those? And so he was able to step into his gifts and passions. And so, I think that we have a responsibility to actually give one another the freedom. That's a beautiful gift we give one another. It's like when you have somebody over. If you make your house perfect all the time, then you actually then oppress them in some way, because then they feel like their house has to be perfect. And, there's a way that we do that for one another in life as well, that when we let people see that we are still figuring stuff out, or that we have normal families, or that our bodies get tired, that we don't always have ideas and answers, then we give each other a strange gift by letting that be seen, of freedom and just being human and real. So
it's a wonderful gift. So Mandy, you have a great book out. The title of the book, in one of the chapters in the book, is Learning to Like the Mess.
Yeah, it's funny because my previous book is called Making a Mess and Meeting God, and so you would think I'm a really messy person, but I'm actually a perfectionist, and so maybe I write about it because God has just taught me that perfect is not actually an option really in life, and mess is just the way life happens, and human beings are messy, emotions are messy, bodies are messy, and so you can fight that your whole life, or you can embrace it and learn to like it, learn to actually watch how God uses messy things, whether it's messy relationships, or the mess of trying to lead a church, or the mess of just being in a body with emotions. All of that, I think, if we see that God chose to step into the mess of being a human, and so somehow it helps us actually in our understanding of who Jesus was. I think in some ways he was more willing to be human than we are. And so to step into the mess, to learn to like the mess in some way, is to learn something about who Jesus was.
Wow. So how can that vulnerability or frailty lead to inner renewal?
That's a good question. My favorite passage in talking about this is the 2 Corinthians 4, where Paul talks about being clay vessels that house a treasure, and that truth of God's power and the glory of God, he says, is housed in these clay vessels that doesn't fade the way the glory faded from Moses' face after he got the clay tablets on the mountain, but that instead of the stone tablets, instead of writing a message to us in stone tablets, he wrote it on our hearts, that he gave us his very spirit to live in these bodies. And there's this beautiful possibility that even if we feel limited, even if we feel weak, even if our bodies get tired and old and all the things that we feel as ordinary human beings, this reality of being in a clay vessel, being in an ordinary body and experience, is something that God for some reason wants to partner with. Like, he made us that way. He's not ashamed of our limitation. And in fact, he actually says, like, I see some potential there. I want to partner with that, and I want myself to be shown in and through that experience of the human being. And so I love that image that we are clay vessels that carry this treasure that is so beautiful. And it's a strange thing to live, knowing your limitation, but also trusting the power or the potential that God sees in that, and to live in that partnership that is filled with the Spirit. That brings renewal, I think, when we know that God is making us new on the inside, even as we feel ourselves wasting away. And that's what Paul says too. Outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. So even if physically we feel our bodies wasting away, or our minds not being able to keep up as we get older or whatever, inwardly we are being renewed. Inwardly we are getting younger every day if we have the Spirit. So
that's amazing, Mandy. And thank you so much for sharing a cup of theology with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I've learned much on today, and you're such a gift to us, and a gift to Northeastern, and a gift to the world. So continue sharing that
It's
gift.
been good to be here. I've loved it. So keep being you too.
Well, we're going to do it.
Yep.
Let's continue taking this drive together, Mandy.